against these offenses in order to achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. I once again welcome all of you to the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today we will be moving on to our next session, that is Srimad Bhagavatam. Before moving to the next session, let me know who are all on the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji. Please accept.
Prabhupada. This is Dharmika Devidasi from Texas.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to your services. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Aditi Devidasi in Canada.
Hare Krishna, Aditi Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call, and thank you for all your services. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Please go ahead with introduction. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, O Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajis. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Rande.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to all the assembled devotees. This is Sushmita from Canada.
Hare Krishna, Sushmita Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Ji, Ramita Anita Ramya Mataji, Dandavat Pranam to you and all Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to all your questions and all your bhavas which are expressing after the call. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. Anyone else who would like to introduce themselves?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the Guru Maharajas. This is Sita Priti Devdasi from Pune. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Sita Priti Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to your services on Bhakti Sangha and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji. This is Kamadaki Dasi from Baltimore. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj and all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Komodiki Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. So nice of you to see after a long time on the call, Mataji. Please join us every day and all glories to your services. And thank you so much, Mataji, for coming on the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to Assembled devotee. This is Mohini Lakshmi from Detroit.
Hare Krishna, Mohini Lakshmi Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. Now we will be moving on to our next session, that is Srimad Bhagavatam, which will be given by His Grace Jayananada Gauranga Prabhuji. Before the next, I would like to hand over the call to Suresh Shyam Prabhuji for giving brief introduction about His Grace Jayananada Gauranga Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Suresh Shyam Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for joining the call. Please take over, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Here is a brief introduction about Prabhuji. His Grace Jayananada Gauranga Das, disciple of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj. Prabhuji took to Krishna consciousness while at college in 1998. He did his undergraduate at BITS Pilani, doctoral degree at Texas A&M, and postdoctoral work at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Prabhuji is a professor of obstetrics and gynecology in the United States. He has been chanting 16 rounds for over 24 years. Prabhuji is well versed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and has read Chaitanya Charitamrita over 50 times. He has been doing edifications of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam for the Bhakti Vriksha programs. Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Back to you, Mataji.
Mataji, unmute.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Shri Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much for giving such a brief introduction about His Grace, Jayananada Gauranga Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Jayananada Gauranga Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for joining the call. And also, Prabhuji is well versed in his PPT presentations and giving the class. I would like to add this also. So this class is really wonderful. It's just giving a very some sweet to us. So from the start to end, it's really very wonderful, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for joining the call. All credits to Srila Prabhupada. Take over, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Vinita Gandarke Mataji, for asking me to come this morning. And I'm going to just share the PowerPoint. Let's see. You're able to see Mataji and hear as well? See the PowerPoint?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Today, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 9, Verse 38. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udhirayet nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the verse, this morning's verse. Sayeva hi punaha sarvavastuni vastu swarupaha sarveshwara sakala jagat karana bhutaha sarva pratyagatmavat sarva agunabaso palakshita ekayeva paryavasheshitaha. I'll read it again. Sayeva hi punaha sarvavastuni vastu swarupaha sarveshwara sakala jagat karana bhutaha sarva pratyagatmavat sarva gunabhaso palakshita ekayeva paryavasheshitaha. This is the verse. Translation. With deliberation, one will see that the Supreme Soul, although manifested in different ways, is actually the basic principle of everything. The total material energy is the cause of the material manifestation, but the material energy is caused by Him. Therefore, He is the cause of all causes, the manifester of intelligence and the senses. He is perceived as the super soul of everything. Without Him, everything would be dead. You, as that super soul, the supreme controller, are the only one remaining. I'll read the translation once more. With the deliberation, one will see that the Supreme Soul, although manifested in different ways, is actually the basic principle of everything. The total material energy is the cause of the material manifestation, but the material energy is created by Him. Therefore, He is the cause of all causes, the manifester of intelligence and the senses. He is perceived as the super soul of everything. Without him, everything would be dead. You, as that super soul, the supreme controller, are the only one remaining. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. The words Sarva Vastuni, Vastu Swarupaha indicate that the Supreme Lord is the active principle of everything. As described in the Brahma Samhita 5.35, Ego Piyasav Rachayutam Jagadanda Kotim Yachakti Rashti Jagadanda Chaya Yadantaha Andhantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enters the existence of every universe and every atom by one of his plenary portions, and thus manifests his infinite energy through the material creation. By his one plenary portion as Paramatma, Antaryami, the Lord is all-pervading throughout the unlimited universes. He is the Pratyak, or Antaryami, of all living entities. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetrasu bharata. O scion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. Because the Lord is the super soul, he is the active principle of every living entity and even the atom. Andantarastam paramanu chayantarastam. He is the actual reality. According to various stages of intelligence, one realizes the presence of the Supreme in everything through the manifestations of his energy. The entire world is permeated by the three gunas, and one can understand his presence according to one's modes of material nature. So, the way I have prepared this discussion is, from this verse, there are three take-home messages. And each of the take-home messages, we will elaborate with evidence and substantiate each one of those statements. So, if we read this verse carefully, we can find that there are three conclusions about the Supreme Lord's nature. And that is what is stated in this verse. And what are the three conclusions? Number one, that the Lord is the basic principle underlying all that exists. Number two, that the Lord is the cause of all causes. And number three, the Lord is the super soul of everything in existence. So these are the three conclusions from this verse, and we will take up each one of these verses, each one of these conclusions, and elaborate on them, and to see how these three conclusions of this verse is substantiated. So how did I get these three? If you can see this translation here, you will find that, okay, so if you see the first part here, it talks about how the basic principle of everything is the Lord. Second, you can see that the Lord is the cause of all causes. And third, you will see that he is perceived as a super soul of everything. So these are the three conclusions about the Supreme Lord's nature from this verse, that the Lord is the basic principle of all that exists. The Lord is the cause of all causes. And three, Lord is the super soul of everything in existence. So let's take the first take-home message here, which is the Lord is the basic principle underlying existence. So this is substantiated right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, 1.2.11, Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 11, that the absolute truth is, that is Krishna, is both the subject and the object. So how do we get this? Vadanti tat tatvidam tatvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmiti bhagavaniti shabdayati. That is the verse. That the Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, they are all spirit by nature, and hence they are qualitatively one, since they are all spirit. Those who are the perfect seers of the absolute truth, that means those who are not able, those whose vision is not contaminated by conditioned nature, by the modes of material nature, and those who are the perfect seers of the absolute truth, they are able to see, okay, know well that these three features, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan, that these three features of that one absolute truth, Advayam, are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. So these seers, they see the same absolute truth from different angles of vision. So in this relative world, okay, the knower is different from the known. For example, if I want to study a particular subject, let's say algebra, then the knower here is me, and what is known here is algebra. So these two are different things. Okay, so that is in the relative world. But in the absolute truth, the knower is also spirit, and the known is also spirit. So, and they are one and the same thing. Okay, so this is what this part says, that all that pervades in existence is spiritual in nature. Vadanti tat tatvidam tatvam yajnanam advayam. So this non-dual spiritual nature, both the known and the knower are spirit in nature. Now let's see. Thus, there is what this leads us to is that this is still from the same verse, the Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdayati verse. Jiva Goswami has done an extensive analysis of this verse in his Tattva Sandarbha. And I've taken more from that, from Tattva Sandarbha, to understand this. So that there is a different vision in material versus spiritual world. So what Jiva Goswami says is that in the relative world, the knower is the living spirit, okay, or the superior energy. Okay, so this is the marginal energy or the Tatastha Shakti, whereas the known is the inert matter. Okay, this is the Bahiranga Shakti, the external energy of the Lord. So if we see in this material world, I just said that if I want to know about a particular object, that object, okay, is that of the inferior energy. Okay, therefore, there is the duality of inferior and superior. So there is always something dual here. So there is a difference from our vision. Okay, from our perspective, from the conditioned soul's perspective, the knower and the known are different. The living being in contact with the inferior energies illusioned, because the living entity is under the purview of Maya, thinking that the living entity belongs to the inferior. The living entity itself thinks that the living entity belongs to the inferior energy. Okay, that is the illusion. The living entity recognizes themselves with the body and not the spirit. And since they recognize themselves with the body and not the spirit, they recognize themselves as the inferior energy, as though they are made up of some chemicals, some matter, various chemicals mixed together. So they falsely identify themselves with that of the matter, without understanding that they are actually spirit, and that they are of the same substance as that of the absolute truth. Therefore, there is the sense of relativity in this material world. But Jiva Goswami contrasts this but in that of the absolute realm. Okay, in the spiritual realm, those who are seers, who are able to see without conditioned thinking, those who are in the spiritual, they're already realized. They are already in the Brahman realization. These Brahma Bhuta, these self-realized souls, for them both the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. Okay, so here there is no distinction. They do not see the matter. They do not see the difference between matter and spirit. They see everything as spirit. And in the absolute, there is no such difference between the knower and the known. Okay, so that is the Advayam. Okay, so this is the Abheda aspect of the Achintya Abheda. Okay, so as the philosophy goes of Achintya Bheda, this part of, so this, if we see this verse here, the first conclusion is that of Abheda, and the second and third are more of Bheda. So the second is actually in between Abheda and Bheda, but then the third one is clearly Bheda. So all Abheda and Bheda, everything exists in this verse. So if we see the three conclusions that I had shown here, the first, the Lord is the basic principle of underlying existence, is classic Abheda. The third one, the Lord is the super soul of everything in existence, talks about a Bheda part. And then the second one, the Lord is the cause of all causes. We will see that how Bheda and Abheda exist simultaneously there. Okay, so that is so that means that for the seer, from the conditioned perspective, they see everything, they see that the known and the knower are different. But those who see from the spiritual perspective, for them in the absolute realm, the knower and the known are one and the same, because they see that the known is also spiritual in nature, and the knower, which is themselves, they also see themselves as that of spiritual in nature. So now let's see another verse in the Bhagavatam which corroborates this, and that is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 1. Okay, this is a very, very wonderful verse because it provides so much information that anytime in most of the verses you go in Srimad Bhagavatam, you can always take some kind of a message from the very first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Jiva Goswami says that if we want to understand a scripture, what the author of the scripture is trying to say, then you see the first verse, the last verse, and what is being repeatedly said again and again. Okay, he says this again in his Tattva Sandarbha. So let's see here in the Bhagavatam 1.1.1, where he explains this, where the Bhagavatam itself explains this concept of how everything is simultaneously one and different. What is it? And in the purport, Prabhupada says here that the Lord is compared to a mine of gold. Okay, so I put a picture here. The top panel, in the right top panel here, shows a picture of, it's a gold mine, okay, which is compared with the Lord and the cosmic creations in so many different forms. So the bottom right panel of different ornaments. Okay, so these are, we can compare that with all the creations. Okay, so as compared to the objects made from gold, such as gold rings, necklaces, and so on. So if there is a huge mountain or a mine of gold, and then you have small gold particles, okay, small gold particles, okay, that means both this gold ring, okay, and this gold mine, if you see, both of them are qualitatively one. The gold ring and the gold necklace are qualitatively one with gold, okay, but the gold mine is still the source of these gold particles that are from gold necklaces, gold ornaments, small gold objects that are being formed. So there are two things here. One is that the gold mine is the source of all these gold objects. And then second, that this mountain is quantitatively vast. Okay, so it's that everything that emanates out of it, it is infinite, and everything that emanates out of this gold mine, okay, is still can be distinguished in a sense from this gold mine, because this gold, if you see these gold particles, they can always be covered under dust. But the gold mine is never covered under dust. The dust can be compared with that of Maya, and therefore this gold, these small gold particles or gold objects, if they get covered under dust, it doesn't even understand its own nature as dust, as gold anymore. So in the same way, we draw this analogy here that this gold mine has a huge spiritual mine. Okay, that personality is Krishna, and these small spirit particles which are emanating out of him are the living entities, and whatever we see around. Okay, so every matter, everything, all these things are small spirit particles which get covered under the dust of Maya. And since they get covered under the dust of Maya, they falsely identify themselves not with gold anymore, but with just dust itself. Therefore, the absolute truth is simultaneously one and different. So nothing is absolutely equal with the absolute truth. If you see here, these gold particles here, none of them are absolutely equal with the gold mine. But at the same time, they are not independent from the absolute truth itself. So that means this concept of achintya, bheda, abheda is there throughout the scriptures, whether whatever Upanishad we take, whatever Samhitas we take, whatever the Bhagavatam, everywhere this concept of achintya, bheda, bheda permeates. That where we understand, some verses will talk more about abheda, some verses will talk more about bheda, and some verses talk about both. And this verse talks about both Bheda and Abheda. Okay. Now, so Jiva Goswami in his Paramatma Sandarbha, this is something that I spoke about last time. I just took one last time when I came here to this congregation. And where Jiva Goswami, he has written a commentary for his own Paramatma, for his Shatsandarbha, and it is called a Sarva Sampadani. In his commentary for the Paramatma Sandarbha, okay, Anucheda 78, there he talks about this Varmatetva Chintya Bhedha Bheda Eva Chintya Shakti Mayatva. So there he's defining this, where the Achintya, okay, is he just said that that the absolute truth is endowed with these inconceivable energies. And what is that? So now we have the Abheda and Bheda. Okay, so the example which Jiva Goswami gives for his Abheda is that the pot is in effect while the clay is not in effect. Okay, it is a cause. Therefore, okay, so I'll put it in simple terms. So if you have clay, from clay you can make a pot. So qualitatively, the clay and the pot are the same because both are made of the same clay. And therefore, we can say that the clay, the cause, is just not different in substance from the pot. That is the abheda. However, there is also a bheda because before making the pot, the clay alone exists. Therefore, the word cause is used for the clay alone and never for the pot. Okay, so there is a difference in terms of the cause and effect. So just like a gold mine and a gold necklace, so you have clay and pot. So clay and pot are one in substance, but they are different in terms of the ontology. Okay, so this is an analysis given by Jiva Goswami in his Sarva Samvadani for the same aspect. Now let's go to the second conclusion here in this verse. Out of the three conclusions about the Supreme Lord's nature, this first conclusion is what we discussed and substantiated so far. The first conclusion is that the Lord is the basic principle underlying existence. I told you that that is stressing more of the Abheda aspects of the absolute truth. Now the second aspect is that the Lord is the cause of all causes. We discussed a little bit of it from even the Sarva Samvadani, where we had the analogy of the clay and the pot. Okay, but we will take up some direct verses from the scriptures. What does the Bhagavad Gita itself say about the Lord is the cause of all causes? So where Krishna says that Krishna is the source of all that exists, aham sarvasya prabhavo mattaha sarvam pravartate. Aham sarvasya prabhavo, that Krishna is the greatest of all. There is nothing beyond Krishna. Mattaha, everything emanates, sarvam pravartate, everything that emanates comes from Krishna. So Krishna is the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything that exists, whether this matter, spirit, in essence, there is nothing called matter. So everything is spirit based on our vision. So Krishna is the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Okay, in a higher level of thinking, there is no matter. So everything emanates from Krishna. And that the wise who perfectly know this engage in devotional service and worship Krishna with all their hearts. Okay, so those who understand this are able to worship Krishna. And they are called the wise. The wise who are the followers of Lord Chaitanya. That is the definition of wise according to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who are followers of Bhagavatam 11.5.33 says that the wise, the definition of wise is those who are following Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are called wise. And these wise who perfectly know this engage in devotional service and worship Krishna with all their hearts. So this is from Narayana Upanishad. And there again, it substantiates the statement that everything was created from Krishna. What does Narayana Upanishad says? Narayanad Brahma Jayate, Narayanad Prajapatihi Prajahayate, Narayanad Indro Jayate, Narayanad Ashtau Vasavo Jayante. Okay, the 8 Vasus. Narayanad Ekadasha Rudra Jayante. Okay, the Rudras are all coming from him. Narayana Dwadasha Adityaha. So all the 12 Adityas are coming from Narayana. So from Narayana, Brahma is born, and from Narayana, the patriarchs are also born. From Narayana, Indra is born. From Narayana, the 8 Vasus are born. From Narayana, the 11 Rudras are born. And from Narayana, the 12 Adityas are born. So, and this Narayana himself is an expansion of Krishna. This Narayana himself is an expansion of Krishna. And therefore, Krishna, everything has been created from Krishna. Let's take another verse to substantiate the second conclusion here, that Krishna is the cause of all causes. So this is again the very first verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadiyasya Yataha. So Om, so here Krishna says, Oh my Lord Sri Krishna, son of, so here it is said, Oh my Lord Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. And what does it say here? I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. So the fact that, so if you see, the first conclusion is also derived from Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 1. The second conclusion also is corroborated by Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 1. Okay, that the Lord is the cause of all that has been created, sustained, and destroyed. And Krishna, and the third thing that is said in this word, Krishna is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. So that is the difference, that Krishna is independent. He's independent and there is no cause beyond him. He is the primeval cause, and every cause has a different cause, but there is no cause beyond him. And that is substantiated by this verse. So this is the second, next verse, which is substantiating the second conclusion here, that the Krishna is the cause of all causes. Let's take another verse to substantiate the same thing. Okay, again, the Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is the source. And what is this? Mama yonir mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham. So here, Mama yonir, okay, this total material substance, okay, that is mahat. Okay, the word mahat here, mahat, okay, is Brahma. Okay, that is Brahman. Okay, yonir is the seed. His Krishna is the originating seed. Mama yonir, mahat. Mahat is the total material substance. Brahma. Brahma is the material, is the spiritual energy. Okay. So tasmin garbham. So that means that Krishna is impregnating. Okay. So this total material substance called mahat. Okay. The mahat tattva. Okay, what is described in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Okay, the Mahat Tattva in the second canto, second chapter. If you see, we can start from there. The description starts there of creation is described as Brahman. So that means that for a spiritual seer, those who are able to see from a spiritual eyes, we pluck out the material eyes, put in the spiritual eyes, and then we see this. We see this world does not, when this world does not appear material anymore, and everything is in connection with Krishna, dovetail with Krishna, appears spiritual. We can see that this total Mahat Tattva is spirit in nature, that is Brahman. That the supreme person, okay, Krishna himself impregnates that Brahman. with the seeds of the living entities. Okay, so if we take as this Mahat, okay, this material cosmos, okay, is also spirit, okay, and it is being infused, okay, impregnated, okay, with the seeds of the living entities. Okay, the material nature is not the cause of the birth of the living entity. So this, what does this tell us? That the material nature is not the cause. So we cannot take that some chemicals, okay, even from a material vision, we're able to see all these chemicals. They are not the cause of the living entities, but that the seed, okay, Yonir, is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Aham Bija. Okay, so Krishna is the seed-giving father. For Parampita, he is the Supreme Father, is the seed-giving father. That the Lord is the cause of all the manifestations of the living entities in this material world. So this is another verse which is substantiating the second conclusion that Krishna is the cause of all causes. Okay, we'll take another verse to substantiate the same conclusion that Krishna is the source. And this is Bhagavad Gita 10.2. Ahamadirhi Devanam. So what is this? Devanam, all the devas, that he is the primeval, that neither the host of the demigods nor the great sages know Krishna's origin or opulences. Nobody knows Krishna's origins or opulence, even the host of demigods. For in every respect, Krishna is the source of the demigods and the sages. Aham Adir. He Devanam. So Krishna is the source of all the demigods and the sages. This is Bhagavad Gita 10.2. So many verses of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Upanishads. So what we have taken is, we have taken verses from the Bhagavad Gita. We have taken, that is, we took this verse 10.2. We also took the verse from Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. We took a verse from okay, we also took this verse, Mama Yonir Mahat Brahma. So this verse we took from the Bhagavad Gita. We took 3 verses in the Bhagavad Gita from the Bhagavatam and the Upanishad to substantiate the second conclusion that Krishna is the source of all sources. Let's take the third. And of course, always the Brahma Samhita, throughout Brahma Samhita, it always says that Krishna is the cause of Sarva Govindam Adi Purusham. Okay. Tamaham Bhajami. So Krishna is the cause. The very first verse there, it says Sarva Karana Karanam. So we shouldn't forget that as well. Now let's take the last conclusion of this particular verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is that the Lord is the super soul of everything in existence. Okay. The first one is the Brahman realization. Okay. First conclusion, the Lord is the underlying principle of everything, is the Brahman realization. The third is the super soul. Okay, which is the Paramatma realization. Okay, so we'll take the third conclusion. Okay, that the Lord is the super soul of everything in existence. So here we can see the ontology of the super soul. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, Canto 2, chapter verse 52. Both the translation and the purport, I've mixed it up together here. That there are 3 Purushas, of course, we know, that is called Karano, Daka, Shai, Vishnu. Shai means lying down. Karana is cause, from the causal ocean, which is also called as the Virajanadi. So this Vishnu is lying in the cosmic ocean, okay, which is called the causal ocean. And then you have Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu. This Vishnu who is Shai, who is lying down in the Garbhodaka ocean, which is at the bottom of every universe. And then you have Kshirodaka Shai Vishnu. Kshira is milk. So, and this Vishnu who's lying in the milk ocean. So these are the 3 Purushas. So what are these 3 Purushas doing? They are lying down in this Karana ocean, Garbha ocean, Kshira ocean. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita here, the explanation says that these 3 expansions of the Lord or Purushas are the super soul of everything that to be. And what kind of super soul? That Karano Dakashai Vishnu is the super soul of the collective universes. All the universes are the basis is the Karano Dakashai Vishnu. He's a super soul of all the collective universes. Okay. Garbho Dakashai Vishnu is a super soul of the collective living beings, all the living beings that exist. He's a super soul. And Kshiro Dakashai Vishnu, the Vishnu who lies in the milk ocean, is the super soul of the individual living entity. So when he is resting in an individual's heart as the super soul, then that, okay, as like when we say that there are 2 birds sitting on the same tree, and that one bird is watching the other tree. That Vishnu is the super soul of every living entity, and that is Kshirodakasai Vishnu. And commonly when we say as super soul Paramatma, we refer to this Kshirodakasai Vishnu. But Chaitanya Charitamrita elaborates that there are three levels of the super soul, and that is the ontogeny of the super soul. Okay, and when we see this, but further, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita says that beyond this, there is a fourth dimension of Lord Krishna who has no contact with material energy. That means even Krishna is always stays in the beyond anything that can be even conceived by this material eyes as material. He's even for this contact with this material energy, okay, even for that he expands as Vishnu. But Krishna is even so there is like a total separation there. So that is the Bheda. So even for that creation, or even for coming in contact with that material energy, even for that he expands as these three Purushas as Karanodakashayi Vishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and Kshirodakasai Vishnu. And Krishna always stays in a dimension even beyond it, with absolutely no connection in his Bhagavan feature, in Goloka. So that is the ultimate transcendental realm. There are different transcendental realms. Okay, so the ultimate transcendental realm is that of the capital of the Vaikuntha, where in Goloka, there Krishna says in his original personality. So if we also see different temples where there is Krishna expanded as the Vishnu, one of these Vishnus, different temples, they show different forms of this Vishnu. For example, if you go to Trivandrum, and there the Padmanabha Swami temple there is that of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, because there Brahma is coming from the navel bit of the Vishnu there. But then if you go to Srirangam, and there if you see the Vishnu there, that Vishnu is Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. There is no Brahma coming from the navel pit of the Vishnu there, and he's the Vishnu lying in the milk ocean. So different Vishnus, they reside in different temples. So, and I just explained about the soul and the super soul as tree, as two birds in a tree, and where this is coming from, Dva Suparna Sayujaha Sakhaya. So this is the verse in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, which is 4.6. There are two birds in one tree. One of them is eating the fruits of the tree, while the other is witnessing the actions. The witness is the Lord, and the fruit eater is the living tree. So the Mundaka Upanishad has the same kind of verse. Even Katha Upanishad has this kind of a verse, actually. Samane Vrikshe Purusho Nimagno. Although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as he enjoys the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or the other turns his face to his friend, the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxiety. So basically what it says is that there is one tree which is under illusion and is taking up all the reactions. It is sometimes anxiety, it is with engrossed in anxiety and moroseness. Okay, but the other tree, who is the other bird, who is the observer, okay, if this bird turns into the realization of the super soul, okay, becomes a yogi and realizes super soul, then the person that's suffering immediately vanquishes. That is called as Paramatma realization, and that is basically what this verse is saying. And Madhvacharya, in his commentary of the Vedanta Sutra, called as Madhva Bhashya, goes in detail about these verses, okay, and he takes both Shvetashvatara Upanishad, this verse, Mundaka Upanishad, and Katha Upanishad, and there is a similar verse also in Mandukya Upanishad, okay. So in all these Upanishad that is there, and showing that there are verses, many verses in the Upanishad which clearly talk about the Bheda aspects. And there are verses in the Upanishad that do talk about abheda, but there are also many verses that talk about bheda and how both these features exist simultaneously. Now, this is my last but one slide. Okay, so this slide is going to talk about Lord as in the transcendent feature, and the next slide is going to talk about Lord in the immanent feature. So what does it mean by Lord in the transcendent feature? As here in this transcendent feature, I've taken two examples here. This is from the purport of this verse itself. Prabhupada has so appropriately given this verse here, Andahantarastham, Paramanu Chayantarastham. So if you split this, Andahantarastham, okay, I'm going to cover it in this slide, which is good for this explanation that the Lord as transcendent. And the next one is Paramanu Chayantarastham. I'll take up that. So that is why I didn't highlight that in this slide. That I will take it up in the next slide, which shows that Lord in immanent form. So Lord in the transcendent form as Garbhodaka, Andantaras, Anda. So in the universe, Anda is universe. In every universe, Krishna is present in the form of Vishnu as in the transcendental form in the bottom of at the Garbhodaka ocean, which is the bottom half of the ocean. So that is what this Brahma Samhita is saying. Okay, and Krishna is also present in his transcendental form entirely in the Bhagavan feature in the Goloka, and the Brahma Samhita again says Goloka eva nivasati akhilatma bhuto. So I worship Govinda, the primordial Lord residing. So if you see the left panel here shows that this Andantarastham. Okay, so this is the Vishnu who lies in the bottom of the universe, and how he permeates up. And then the right panel shows in the Bhagavan feature directly in Goloka. So I worship Govinda, the primordial Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency, possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, embodiments of the extension of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. Brahma Samhita 5.37. Okay, so this is the Lord present in the transcendent form. Now, as super soul, the Lord is also present in the immanent form. Okay, so and how is he present in the immanent? And that is the second part of this verse. So now I've highlighted the second part, Andantarastham, Paramanu Chayantarastham. I've highlighted the second part, which is Paramanu. Paramanu is every atom. Okay, Chayantarastham. So when we take every atom, when we see that the electrons are moving, everything. And why are the electrons moving? Because Krishna exists as super soul in every particle that exists. Not only in living beings, as like in the analogy of two birds in a tree, but in every particle, Krishna permeates as super soul. Paramanu Chayantarastham. So, and the Bhagavad Gita substantiates the statement of the Brahma Samhita. Okay, it is the Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Arjuna Tishtati. That Krishna is present as in the Hridaya or the heart of Sarva Bhutanam, every living entity who is present, Ishvara, Krishna is present. Okay, Tishtati is existing. So that is this verse here. Okay, so with that, we have concluded substantiated the third part of this conclusion, which is that the Lord is the super soul of everything in existence. So in this discussion, what we have done is we have taken statements from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from Bhagavad Gita, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, from the Upanishads, and from the commentaries of Srila Jiva Goswami, in both in the Tattva Sandarbha as well as in the Sarva Sambhadani commentary of the Paramatma Sandarbha. And we have substantiated the three conclusions of this Srimad Bhagavatam verse. And what are the three conclusions? So the first conclusion is that the Lord is the basic principle underlying existence, which talks about the Brahman realization. The Lord is the cause of all causes. And the third conclusion is that the Lord is a super soul of everything in existence, which is the Paramatma realization. And then we blended all this with the statement from the Sarva Sambhadani about Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, where how the Brahman, the Abheda and the Bheda simultaneously exists, and also about the Achintya Shakti, okay, and how the substantive has inconceivable energies. And with that, I will stop. And I would again like to thank for this opportunity to share. If I have said anything wrong, if there are any mistakes in the slides, I would appreciate if you could let me know. In that way, I can correct it for a future, before I share this in a future occasion somewhere. And I would offer my humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas assembled here. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much. Thank you again for this opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for that wonderful class. So telling about the existence of the Lord, all the three conclusions. So finally I have stopped here. So this is what I was searching for the slide also. So that was yet another wonderful PPT presentation. So telling, so it was in depth of each and every point which were explained and quoted various verses. So Shukar Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Anita Majay, thank you for giving me opportunity to talk. Thank you, Jayananada Prabhu. It was really, as usual, you have gone deep into all the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhita. There is nothing to be known. You made it very, very clear. So thank you so much for such fantastic realization. And can you just send the slides so that we can also make the notes out of it if we can upload it?
Yes, I'll send it to Vinitha Mataji. Mataji.
I'm really proud of you. The way you did it was super awesome.
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj will be very happy. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Jayananada Prabhu, very nicely you have explained, and there is no question about anything. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
It was very perfect, Prabhuji. Actually, you quoted so many verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then saying about the Lord is both subject and object. That was really very clear, where you told that He is known and knower also. And the verse from Bhagavatam 1.1.1, which is always we have to remember. And the Bhagavad Gita shlokas 14.3, 10.8, and 10.2. So very nice, Prabhuji. All the points which you had explained. Every time you come, there is something which you can make it a whole package.
Thank you, Mataji. Very motivating. Hare Krishna.
Vinita Gandarita Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a beautiful, beautiful class. Very grateful to you.
Thank you,
So detailedly explained these three concepts, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Very nice explanation with the different examples like gold and pot and everything. And also that Shirodakshay Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Karanadakshay Vishnu, all that clearly explained very nicely, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Very grateful to you, and I have to read the PPT again to understand more. Please send the PPT, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So I just want to make one disclaimer here. These three conclusions is not something that I myself made out of it. It is, I actually learned these three conclusions from a book written by His Grace Bhurijana Prabhu. He has written commentaries, its expansion, realizations from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And when for this particular verse, these are the three realizations which was written by Bhurijana Prabhu, and I simply took it from there. So that's the disclaimer. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for telling
thank
us
you so
the
much,
source.
Prabhuji, for sharing. Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for sharing it with us also. Thank you. Hare Krishna, devotees. Yeah, Radha Damodar Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhu, you mentioned two examples for Karanadakshay Shirodakshaya Vishnu and Garbhodakshay Vishnu temples. So I was curious about the Karanadakshay Vishnu also. Could you give some example? Is it the Tirupati Venkatesh? Is it Karanadakshay Vishnu? Just curious.
So the forms of these Vishnu, Prabhu, they're all in reclining form. So they're always lying on a bed. So we have to go to the respective. There are many temples where the Lord is in a lying form, where he's reclining, and you can we can actually see, if you can see the history carefully, we'll know. I actually don't know all the temples personally, therefore I'm not the best person to answer that question, where he is as Karanodakashayi Vishnu. And some of this knowledge could also be lost over many ages, like which form he represents. But clearly there are some temples where where the Lord is, when you have the form as Brahma coming, it's very clearly his Garbhodakasai Vishnu there. And then, but there are forms of Vishnu where he's not lying on a serpent bed. Okay, so even if you have to carefully look into the deities and study them and appreciate their glories, then we can understand perhaps whether what form of Vishnu they could be. But then it just should not lead to speculative thing that we ourselves think, oh no, this must be Karanodakasai Vishnu. Or so if there are some deities where the Lord is not lying on a serpent. Okay, so there is a temple where he's called as Thala Shayana Sthala Shayana Perumal. So there is a temple here where he's not lying, he's just lying directly on a slab. He's not lying on a serpent, but he's again reclining there. And in that, so I do not know whether that form, what he represents, I don't know. So I just don't want to speculate here, but any form of Vishnu, he's lying down in a reclining form. Okay. And at least the three Vishnu forms, he's lying down, he's in a reclining form. And when he is as Narayana, he is with four hands. Okay, but there are even eight hand expansions, in the Bhagavatam, in the Canto 4, if we see those kind of expansions are also there. But then the four-handed Narayana forms, who are in the standing feature, showing the standing feature, they are there in different temples. Like when you see in temples like that you mentioned, they're all in the standing form. They directly are Narayana expansions, but the Vishnu. So this is the beauty of the theology that is being expanded by the Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas. It's not just the metaphysics dealing with the Achintya Bheda, where they have dealt with so many philosophical verses to a level that we don't have to speculate. But even in the theology, that is the ontogeny of like who is Krishna, who is Narayana, who is Vishnu, I have barely seen any analysis which is more detailed than that of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the six Goswamis and all the disciplic succession, they have done such a great analysis of and presented it to our community about the theology, that there is no confusion anywhere. Because in many of the places we see that there is, if we don't read it carefully under the guidance of such bona fide spiritual masters, then it leads to so much confusion. Who is Vishnu? Who is Narayana? Who is Krishna? Who is Lord Shiva? Who are the living entities? It leads to so much confusion. And that is something which is, for everything we have an answer. We have an answer and it is very clear. So I hope that partly answers, but if anybody else wants to take any other question, any other realizations they want to share that I've missed, please feel free to add. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. That was really interesting to know. And I just want to ask about curiosity. What is the temple that this is our behind you, that background? Which temple is that?
Let me see, Mataji. I actually don't. That looks like That looks like it's been a long time. So it looks like a temple. I actually don't know, Mataji. It looks like a temple, probably
no
in
problem.
Madurai. I think it's either that or Srirangam, one of these two temples. It's either Srirangam or it is a temple in Madurai called as Kudalaragar. It could be either of the two temples, but I just don't remember. So I just have to see the temple structure. I might remember. The front part looks like the Kudalaragar temple in Madurai, but then if I look at the back tower, it looks like Srirangam. So I'm not sure.
Yes.
I will look at it and tell you, Mataji. I forgot actually. So
Maybe. Yeah. Okay, Babaji. I'm from Madurai, so I could guess that the other one
it looks
is
like that
Kudalalagar.
it looks like the temple,
Yeah.
right, Mataji? Yes, then it must be that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
The
this
front
one,
dome is sort of like
yes,
a circle, like a circular pyramid kind of a thing. So it does look like that. The back tower actually confused me a bit. But
that may be Srirangam, Prabhuji. That
Back one is Srirangam only. Back one is Srirangam only. Srirangam only. Back
okay,
to
so I might have got confused. So yeah.
So, but really wonderful knowing all this. So, just now I have learned that the Perumal who is in Shrina position is the Kshiravagashaya Vishnu, and the standing form is Narayana. So that's a new thing which I learned today. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. And even in Srirangam temple, the Lord is in the sleeping position, right? So it seems like today in one class I just hear that the priest who is in the temple, he just put some coin or something behind the Lord, and it was going down, and it was very vastly going down, and it hit some place, and then when he took out it, there was some milk in that. So it says that the Lord is lying on the milk ocean. So this is the past time which has happened really that the Mataji shared in the class today. So that was really wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
So devotees, I think no more questions or hand raised, Prabhuji, so we can end the call here. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for your wonderful association and very nice class and giving so much points. We wanted association in future also. Devotees, let's pay our obeisances to Prabhuji.
Vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Vrindavan ki jai. Ki jai. Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Gauranga. Nityananda. Gauranga.
Thank you,
Nityananda.
Prabhuji, for a beautiful class. Thank you so much.
Jai Shri Radhe.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Thank you, devotees, for
Radhe
joining the call.
Shyam.
Hare
Sabko
Krishna.
Vrindavan Dham.
Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Thank you everyone for joining today's class. We'll
Nityananda.
close the call for today. Hari Bol.
Nityananda.
Hare Krishna.